You know, there are some stories in politics that just never die. They disappear from the headlines, but then years later, boom, they're back, and they're just as intense as ever. Today, we're diving into one of those stories, a 2-decade-old allegation about Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's citizenship that's just been thrown right back into the spotlight.
So the big question is, why? What gives this decades-old claim such incredible staying power? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we need to unpack where it all started, why it matters so much from a legal standpoint, and what, finally, has changed.
All right, let's kick things off with what's happening right now. Section 1, an old allegation returns. And we're starting here for a very simple reason. A single court order has completely flipped the script on this whole long-running debate.
Okay, so what's the big news? The Allahabad High Court has directed authorities to file what's called an FIR, or a First Information Report. This is basically the official starting gun for a police investigation. And that's a huge deal, because it means a claim that's been floating around in the political world for years now has to be formally investigated.
Now, this is super important, so let's be crystal clear. The court has not ruled on whether the allegation is true. Not at all. What it's done is shift the entire battlefield. This is no longer just a debate for the court of public opinion. It's now in an actual court of law. And moving this into a formal investigative channel, that changes everything.
To really get why that shift is such a game changer, we have to talk about the law. And that brings us to our second section, why citizenship matters. Because believe me, this isn't just about political jabs. It's rooted in some very, very strict legal rules.
The whole thing, literally the entire controversy, boils down to this one law, the Citizenship Act of 1955. And its main rule is simple and absolute. India does not recognize dual citizenship. You can be an Indian citizen or a citizen of another country. You just can't be both. Period. Yeah, the law here is totally black and white. There is no gray area, no middle ground. If an Indian citizen voluntarily goes out and gets citizenship in another country, their Indian citizenship can be terminated. It's an either-or choice. And that is precisely why this allegation carries so much legal weight.
So here's the bottom line. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're not just talking about some personal paperwork here. This gets right to the heart of a person's eligibility to even hold public office. We're talking about the fundamental right to be a member of parliament. And that's what elevates this whole thing from just another political talking point to a really serious legal challenge.
Okay, so now that we know why this matters so much, let's hop in the time machine and go all the way back to the beginning. Section 3, the controversy's origin. We're going to look at the actual documents at the very heart of this dispute.
So where did this all start? It all traces back to corporate filings over in the United Kingdom for a company called Backups Limited. Way back in the early 2000s, some documents were filed that allegedly listed his nationality as British. That one bit of paperwork is the seed from which this entire 2-decade saga has grown.
And right there, you have the central conflict. On one side, you have these UK company documents. On the other, you have Rahul Gandhi's consistent, categorical, flat-out denial he has always maintained he is solely an Indian citizen. For years, the issue was just stuck right there, between those two positions, with no official body ever making a final call.
And you know what happens when there's no official answer, right? It creates a vacuum, and politics loves a vacuum. So let's move on to Section 4, a recurring political issue. This is where we see how this legal question got turned into a political weapon.
Just look at this timeline. It tells the whole story. After the documents are filed, things go quiet for years. Then, boom, 2015, it's raised publicly by a political opponent. It flares up again right around the 2019 elections with new complaints. And now, here we are. It's back because of the court order. You see the pattern, right? This allegation just happens to reemerge at the most politically charged moments.
And that was really the key. Because no authority ever definitively settled the matter, it was just left hanging in this legal limbo. That ambiguity created the perfect political ammunition. It's this unresolved question that you can use to challenge a rival's legitimacy, their national identity, especially when the political scrutiny is at its highest during elections.
Which brings us right back to where we started, full circle. So, Section 5, from politics to investigation. Let's break down exactly what this new court order means and what's going to happen next.
So here's how the process works, broken down. First, a petitioner filed a complaint in court. Second, the High Court looked at it and ordered that FIR, which signals that a formal investigation is required. So now third, investigators will actually begin their work. And fourth, they'll gather evidence, examine those UK documents, and figure out if they stand up to legal scrutiny. The process has officially begun.
Now, this is a really crucial distinction to make. Think of it like a referee in a football match decided to review a controversial play. They haven't decided if it's a foul yet. They've just decided the incident is serious enough to deserve a closer look. Ordering an investigation means the court isn't just dismissing the complaint out of hand. It is the beginning of a process, not the conclusion.
So, let's bring all of this together in our final section, the unresolved question. Let's try to finally answer that big why we started with. Why on earth has this one story had such an incredibly long life?
It really boils down to a perfect storm of these three factors. First, the legal stakes. The right to sit in Parliament are just enormous. Second, the core evidence has always been disputed. It's a case of documents versus a denial. And third, this issue lives right at that volatile, explosive intersection where law and politics collide. That's what gives it a staying power that most controversies just don't have.
For 2 decades, this has been the cycle. An allegation surfaces, it's denied, and then, without an official ruling, it just fades away, ready to be revived later. The High Court's order to investigate, well, that may have finally broken that long-standing pattern.
And so that leaves us with this final, fascinating question. For the first time, this issue has moved decisively out of the fast-paced world of political rhetoric and into the slow, evidence-based machinery of a legal investigation. So what happens when a political talking point finally has to answer to the slow, methodical pace of the law? What happens next won't depend on accusations, but on proof.